As we were about halfway to the dune, I felt Ricardo place a firm hand on my shoulder, abruptly stopping me from continuing to run. At first, I was confused, but then I saw what his gaze was fixated on. I glanced up toward the dune and saw it. There was a dark figure standing motionlessly at the peak of the dune. Its arms were freakishly long, almost reaching its knees.
The hell?
It was ridiculous.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy John, aka Darkwolf92. How y'all doing? I'm back, and I've got another spooky story. Okay, keep things going for the month of October. And this one, it was kind of tricky because I actually went to Mr. Nightmare's page, and he had a story that was saying beach horror stories update. Now I was like, well, wait, an update, and I was about to do a reaction to that one, but I went and located the original video because I didn't want to see the update without seeing the original video first. So what's going to happen is we're going to do a reaction together to this and check out not only the original video, but after that, check out the updated video. Okay. So as always, guys, if you enjoy my content and you want to help the channel, support the channel, please hit that like button. Okay. If you're one of my already much loved subscribers, please check to make sure you're still subscribed, because YouTube is taking away people's subscribers, and hit that notification bell so you know when these videos go up. If you're visiting this channel for the first time, I want to say welcome, and please help your boy out by hitting that subscribe button and the like button. But anyway, let's go ahead and get this started, because this is going to take a bit. So as you can see, this is 3 disturbing true Hollywood beach horror stories. Okay. And like I said, this is the first one. And we're going to go ahead and watch this so we can go ahead and check out the update.
Until I was about 25, I lived in a beach
Whoa.
My specific
That's
neighborhood
beautiful.
was about a 20-minute walk from the
Bet
beach.
it's held during a hurricane, though.
80% of my personality was beach-related. I've been surfing longer than I've been able to speak, and it would be an anomaly for me to shake out a pair of shoes and not have some amount of sand fall out. My 2 best friends, let's call them Armand and Chuck, were extroverted, outgoing, and charismatic. We were all 18, very much obsessed with girls. It was a Saturday night in late May, just a few weeks before school let out. Senioritis had long since set in, and at this point, my friends and I regularly pushed the limits of how much we could get away with without getting in trouble.
That is beautiful.
We already had our coveted college acceptances, so we didn't really care much about high school anymore. Armand and I had plans to meet up with 2 girls from our high school that we'd been getting along with really well.
Would love to have a beach house.
The plan was to pick the 2 of them up in the evening and enjoy a cool, breezy night on the beach.
Just would hate when a hurricane came
and a
through.
few bottles of wine. The perfect combinations for stargazing on the beach. I don't condone drinking and driving to any capacity, but I was just a stupid kid. I arrived at Sophia's house just after 9. Her and Fran sort of walk danced to the car. It was clear that they had a little something to drink beforehand. Armand and I exchanged some excited grins. It was going to be a fun night. I took a scenic route to a scenic beach. It was about a 30-minute drive. The whole time, the 4 of us were having a great time in the car, cracking jokes and talking about some mutual friends. At one point, Fran and I were having a very deep philosophical conversation about the nature of time and death and such. We were all very much enjoying each other's company. The specific beach I had chosen had a dirt path that you could drive a car up. From there was a more narrow sand path that we would walk. The path was actually pretty steep, but I had picked it because we were less likely to encounter any other people at such a secluded spot. Furthermore, this beach was further away from the main boardwalk, so the sky would be clearer for stargazing. I thought
less light pollution.
I parked my car as far up the dirt road as possible. The 4 of us hopped out. Armand and I carried the blankets and wine. Fast forward through
Trying to see what brand that is, but it looks like it's
After a few
AI.
hours and an empty bottle, Armand and I found ourselves separating. He and Fran walked up the beach, and Sophia and I walked in the opposite direction. After being separated by a decent amount of distance and darkness, I threw my blanket down, and we drunkenly fell asleep on top of it. Before anything happened, Sophia tensed up. At first, I thought it was something that I had done, but then she whispered something. "Do you hear that?" focused my attention and strained my ears, trying to hear something other than the gentle crashing of ocean waves. I assumed she was just drunk, but then, to my surprise, I did hear something. It sounded almost like a whirring, like the sound a small engine would make. The sound seemed to be moving around. I couldn't pin down where it was even coming from. Then it seemed to fade away into nothingness. It's nothing, I assured her, eager to resume what we had been doing. That's what we did. Soon after, I fished my shirt from the sand and shook it out before throwing it over my head. Just then, Sophia, who was still lying on the blanket, shrieked. I whipped around to look at her and saw she was pointing up at something. I looked up, but couldn't see anything besides the blackness of the sky.
Was it a drone?
I sat down next to her to get a better angle. I was horrified. From her point of view, the moon was perfectly aligned with what appeared to be a drone floating directly overhead. It hovered a little while longer before zipping up into the dark sky and disappearing out of sight. It all made sense. The noise that we had heard before was 100% the drone. I got angry at myself for not realizing at the time. I then got sick at the thought of being watched that entire time. I glanced over at Sophia and could tell she had the same exact feeling. She put her head in her hands and started crying.
Oh, what did y'all do? Somebody did the mattress mambo on the beach, it sounds like.
I consoled her as best I could before suggesting we walk back to the car. The two of us made it to the car to find Armand and Fran already there. I quickly explained the situation. The two of them were dumbfounded. I could feel the joy in the air, literally being sucked out. I began driving in silence in the direction of Sophia's house, eventually trying to lighten the mood with some conversation. It didn't work, though. The girls agreed that they didn't feel safe going home just yet. It was a Saturday night, so I didn't mind staying out late.
Didn't feel safe
I asked
going
if we
home.
could hang out at either of their houses. They both shook their heads, saying their parents wouldn't allow it. My house was off the table for the same reason, as was Armand's. I decided to ask Armand to call up Chuck, which he did. Chuck's house was massive, and his parents were super chill. It was honestly the perfect spot. To our delight, Chuck was free. I pulled into Chuck's driveway and parked the car. Armand and the two girls began making their way towards Chuck's front door, and I told them I'd catch up to them in a second. I needed a second to think about everything that had just happened. I was more shaken up than I was letting on, so I leaned my forehead against the steering wheel and closed my eyes in an attempt to calm down a bit. Honestly, those few seconds with my eyes closed really helped. Instinctively, I pulled out my phone, which I hadn't even touched since the incident. The screen lit up, and I stared at the single notification that sat on the display. I had to blink a few times to make sure I wasn't imagining it. My entire body froze as I stared in horror at the lone notification. AirTag found moving with you. Every emotion that I had just expelled from my body came crashing back. We were literally being tracked. I snapped out of my paralysis and jumped out of the car, examining every inch of the vehicle. Nothing on the front bumper, nothing in the grille, and nothing on the back. I started getting desperate, checking the seats and flipping floor mats. Still nothing. By now, sweat was pouring down my neck, and I could feel the hairs on my arms and legs clamping up. I got on my hands and knees and began examining the underside of my car. I got to the tire on the driver's side and began feeling around the tire well. And there it was. It was literally taped to the underside of the well. Impossible to find if you didn't know what you were looking for.
Damn.
I held the tag in my hand for a few seconds before throwing it to the ground and smashing it to pieces. Whoever had watched us on the beach with that drone knew where we were. I didn't feel safe in Chuck's driveway all alone. I picked up one of the broken AirTag pieces and ran over to Chuck's front door. I told everyone what I had discovered, showing them the AirTag pieces to prove it. They were even more horrified than I was, especially the girls. I checked their phones and saw the same notification. Chuck was particularly pissed off because we had been potentially tracked back to his house. After the panic subsided, we spent the rest of the night in Chuck's basement and ended up sleeping over. A couple weeks passed and nothing happened. Honestly, my friends and I were glad to forget about the whole thing, assuming it was entirely in the past now. The only way we could rationalize it was that some creep wanted to watch some young adults hook up on the beach and track their car to scare them. It was chilling to think about, but we were relieved that the situation hadn't escalated.
Yeah, you better consider
Sunday
yourself
morning,
damn
about
lucky.
3 weeks after the incident, I got a call from Chuck. He screamed through the phone for me to drive to his house as soon as possible, which I did. When I got there, he was standing in his driveway with a concerned look on his face and some paper in his hand. I was confused until I realized what he was holding. They weren't papers,
There were
but rather
photos.
pictures. I examined them more closely. Pictures of me from that night on the beach. They were grainy and dimly lit, but you could clearly see Sophia and I in revealing fashion. I was disgusted. I could only imagine how Sophia would feel upon finding out. Not knowing what to do, we called the police and explained the situation. They told us that there was essentially nothing they could do.
Exactly.
But we insisted that they at least scan the photos for prints. They eventually got back to us saying the photos turned up nothing. Sophia was terrified that whoever sent them would try and blackmail her. I feared the same. The experience was downright traumatizing. Luckily, nothing ever happened after that, probably because we had gotten the police involved. Sophia was never quite the same around me after what happened, and I can't blame her. I can only hope those pictures don't turn up later in my life.
See, that's why I'm lucky back in the day when I was their age and we were on the beach doing stuff like that. There was no drones or air tags or anything like that. I told you some stuff we got away with. Ooh, anyway, moving right along. That's effed up though. That really is effed up. There's some sick individuals in this world.
My best friend Ricardo and I were 19. At the risk of sounding pretentious, the two of us come from well-off North Jersey families and get to enjoy our summers down the Jersey Shore.
Well,
My house is in Belmar, New Jersey.
good for
and his
you
is in
and
Lavallette.
Snooky.
It was a random summer night during the week, and Ricardo was driving the two of us from my house in
Speaking of
Belmar
drones,
down to
somebody's
Lavallette,
flying a drone
about an
in
hour
here.
drive. To be completely honest, I preferred hanging out in Ricardo's house,
Castaways
not only because
Club.
it was a little nicer, but because the general vibe of Lavallette is more geared towards kids our age. If we weren't scouring the area for a party, we could enjoy some drinks on one of the many private beaches we technically weren't supposed to be on. I could go on and on about things to do down the shore, but for the sake of brevity, I'll try my best to get to the point. As we were
Yes,
driving
please
down,
do.
we agreed that we'd opt for a quieter night. No partying, links, or anything that we might normally do. The two of us agreed to snag a few beers, roll a joint, and chill on one of the private beaches under the stars. Honestly, it sounded great. The two of us had been going pretty hard with some of our other friends. A break from partying was much needed. To anyone unfamiliar with the layout of Lavallette, there's a beach side and a bay side. Most of the beaches feature a really high dune and a steep drop-off.
Is that the moon in the
ocean.
distance?
If you were to stand at the ocean edge and look back, you'd see a pretty sizable hill of sand. After drinking a few drinks at Ricardo's place, we snagged some bikes from his garage and made our way toward the beach of our choice. For whatever reason, Ricardo insisted on journeying further than I'd ever been, which I didn't quite understand since all the beaches were basically the same. I really didn't mind a longer bike ride though, so I just went with it. Eventually, Ricardo decided on a desolate-looking beach at the end of the road with no cars parked on it. Every house on the street had its lights off. I actually preferred this. This was back when weed was illegal in New Jersey. We weren't too keen on getting caught. Plus, we did have some drinks with us despite the fact that we were only 19. We hid our bikes under some shrubs, and we made our way toward the beach. The two of us lit our J and smoked under the stars, the only sound being the light waves of the ocean and the accompanying wind. The beach stretched on endlessly in both directions, and the sand felt cool underneath our feet. The two of us got progressively drunker while we filled the air with laughter and conversation.
That's a chill ass night right
Eventually,
there.
we just laid back in the sand, watching a sky full of stars in hopes of witnessing a shooting star. That's when we heard it. I heard it first. It was almost undetectable. The sound was like a metallic buzzing, sort of like the sound you'd hear in a massive gymnasium with large overhead lights.
Not
I
another
really
damn
can't describe the
drone.
sound any better. It was a faint metallic buzz that couldn't possibly be anything caused by the beach. I sat up and stared at Ricardo. I could tell the moment he started to hear it too. Two of us whipped our heads in every direction, looking into the darkness for the source of the drone. Strangely, it was difficult to pin down exactly where the sound was coming from. It was just too faint to tell. We were beginning to get freaked out, too terrified to move. We assumed that whatever was making that noise would go away and we wouldn't have to worry about it. There was literally no way we could be seen from our spot on that beach. It was way too dark. and the sound of the ocean definitely drowned out any sounds we had been making. I know it doesn't exactly sound scary, but I'd be lying if I said my heart wasn't pounding out of my chest. The drone continued on. After another few minutes, Ricardo gestured for me to follow him. I nodded my head in agreement. Leaving was definitely the best option.
Yeah.
Just like a scene from a movie, the exact second the two of us stood up, the droning went from a 1 to a 5. It took every ounce of self-control I had to resist the urge to yell in fear. It wasn't a gradual shift. The sound literally increased in a split second, and it was definitely coming from our right. I felt the hairs on my neck stand up, and a wave of fear washed over me, tensing my body from head to toe. We stared into the darkness and still didn't see anything. But now the drone sounded so close to us that we instinctively started running toward the sand dune. I didn't even know what we were running from. All I knew was that something was seriously wrong and there was someone or something after us. As we were about halfway to the dune, I felt Ricardo place a firm hand on my shoulder, abruptly stopping me from continuing to run. At first, I was confused, but then I saw what his gaze was fixated on. I glanced up toward the dune and saw it. There was a dark figure standing motionlessly at the peak of the dune. Its arms were freakishly long, almost reaching its knees.
The hell?
It was ridiculously tall, and I was shocked at how it managed to stand so still. It was truly terrifying. Ricardo shouted at me, breaking my gaze from the figure, and we continued running, this time parallel to the beach. We ran to the next dune.
Sure it wasn't like a mannequin someone set up?
As we made our way to the peak, we looked back at where we had just came from. I can still remember the terrifying sight that followed. Not only was the dark figure still on the dune, there were maybe 3 or 4 more standing motionless on the slope. Each one looked like they were facing us. We didn't have time to go back for our bikes. Instead, opting to run the entire way home.
Oh, damn.
The next morning, we retraced our steps, but couldn't for the lives of us find those bikes. Maybe they had been stolen, or maybe whoever or whatever was stalking us the night before had something to do with it.
I think
Either
those
way,
may have been
I've never
like
experienced anything
mannequins
scary on
or
the beach and still have trouble explaining most
cutouts
of
or
those events.
something.
The weirdest thing for me is I was never able to determine what the buzzing drone was. And to this day, I've not heard anything even remotely close to it.
Yeah, the way he was saying that they were just standing still and motionless and described them, I think somebody was just effing with them for real, but got their bike stolen. But yeah, there was somebody out there messing with them with that. That had to be just somebody's idea of a sick joke.
Beaches have always terrified me. Well, not always. My fear is a direct result of what I'm about to tell you. As a kid, I used to love the shore. I remember spending many summers in eager anticipation of the weekend when my family and I would hang out at our beach house. Or, if I was lucky, they'd let me spend it at my friend Charles' beach house, which was even more fun. I was 16, and this was one of those special summer weekends. Me, Charles, and our third friend Riley were going to spend a few unsupervised days at Charles' beach house in LBI. Riley was a year older than Charles and I, and had recently gotten his license, so we'd be driving down in his car. The drive down was fantastic. Riley was a pretty uncoordinated driver at the time, so most of the ride was spent laughing at him swerving and cursing the road. It was great. We got down to LBI in good time and immediately moved all of our stuff from the car to the rooms we'd be staying in. The layout of the house is important to the story, so I'll briefly mention it. There's a front door, a garage door which connects the back to the front yard, a back sliding door, and a back upstairs deck that connects the upstairs bedrooms. There's also a spiral staircase that allows you to go directly from the back deck to the ground, so you can enter and exit the house from upstairs. The house sits along a lagoon, meaning the back end of the house faces a narrow channel of water, with houses on the opposite side. We were at that ripe age where chasing girls was a priority, and a nice beach house all to ourselves was the perfect occasion.
Oh,
We spent a
yeah.
few hours figuring out which girls were down the shore at the time and we talked to them on Snapchat. Finally, we found a group of 3 cute girls that said they'd be down to come kick back at Charles' house. I had more than enough weed to last us the weekend. We had snagged a few bottles of our parents' alcohol before leaving. It was perfect. Things were going very well. The 3 girls, Rosie, Alexa, and Sophie, were fun and flirty, and the 3 of us could tell where the night would probably end up. At one point, the 6 of us decided to smoke in Charles' backyard pool. It was small, but it was perfect for 6 drunk kids. I remember the sight vividly. The gentle bay breeze blowing through my hair, the steam from the heated water rising slowly with the puffs of smoke from the joints. At our
And then the
age,
cop
this was
showed up.
bliss. Then suddenly, Charles turned the music all the way down and stared over my shoulder into the darkness of the lagoon. Confused, I turned around, peering into
He
the
saw his
darkness. I could roughly make out the houses on the other side of the lagoon, but I wasn't quite sure what Charles was looking at. One of the girls asked Charles why he turned the music down. He whispered that he saw someone standing on the dock opposite the house. I figured he was messing with us, so I started laughing. Who cares, bro? People literally live here, I said. Charles shook his head. I know that family personally. My parents said they're in Florida for the week. In all honesty, I still thought it wasn't a big deal or he was just messing around, so I kept chuckling. The girls were a little freaked out, though, and said they wanted to go back inside. I wasn't going to argue, so the six of us started making our way out of the pool. As we were drying off in the yard, Riley jumped and cursed, looking towards the lagoon. The rest of us turned, and even though the light was dim, I could definitely see what looked like movement coming from the opposite dock. The six of us froze in place, trying to get a better glimpse of what we were looking at.
Yeah, didn't want to listen.
Just then, a passing car on the road across from us lit up the scene ever so slightly, and the sight was horrifying. There were four tall silhouettes standing at the edge of the dock, facing us. It was impossible to tell what they were wearing or what they looked like, but there was no doubt they were facing our direction. Go inside now, said Charles with a shaky voice, motioning us toward the sliding door. As we rushed inside, I heard a distinct sound that remains the most terrifying noise I'd ever heard. 4 consecutive splashes rang out from behind us. Guy swimming across the lagoon. We were in full-on panic mode at that point. The girl screamed while Riley slammed the sliding door shut and locked it. Charles quickly ran to the front to lock that door too, and the 6 of us ran to the room that wasn't visible from the outside. We waited in silence.
Did you grab any damn weapons? Did you call the cops?
Still nothing. Out of nowhere, Riley cursed, revealing to us that he had forgotten to lock the sliding door on the deck. Charles started to panic, knowing that this house was about to be broken into.
Then you called the cops.
We heard soft, quieted footsteps above us, and that was the last straw. None of us had any weapons on hand. We were all intoxicated, so running was really our only option. The 6 of us sprinted for the front door and bolted to the car, which Riley started up in a flash. The chaos of it all was too much for Riley to handle, and he destroyed Charles' mailbox on the way out of the driveway. Once we were far enough away, we called the police. The ordeal was a nightmare. We went back to the house once police had searched it, but the news was shattering. All of the valuables on the top floor were missing. But that wasn't the worst part. Charles' family owned a medium-sized Boston whaler boat, which was also stolen, most likely as the getaway vehicle. Charles' father attempted to keep a spare set of keys inside a small hatch below the steering wheel, which the police concluded was how the culprits got away so quickly. How they knew where the key was hidden is something I still wonder. The police were never able to arrest the perpetrators, and likely never will. Charles, Riley, and I think whoever robbed the house might have been someone who knew Charles' family, and they knew where the key was, and the house was supposed to be vacant that weekend as well. It's been a long time since this chilling event took place, but I haven't let one day pass without locking every door and window in my home. Do yourself a favor and lock your doors at night.
Oh, Mr. Nightman, you ain't gotta tell me. Shoot, I double check everything. Shoot, and keep old Smokey right there next to the bed. Okay, and Big Shirley sitting in the closet. Loaded. Anyway, but yeah, that's crazy. And this is why you gotta be careful with people, man. This is who you gotta be careful who you let in your house or into your life. Okay, they could be planning. Okay, I can speak from experience that not everybody is truly your friend. As I went on ahead and jumped forward to the update, the story was about the story in the original video, the last one, where the 4 guys broke into the house with the teenagers that were 16. Okay, this update is for that story. He went over that whole story again. I just went forward past it so we could catch the update.
Okay, so I never thought I'd be revisiting this again, but I actually do have an update that's relevant to the story I sent in a while back. This update isn't exactly my story per se, but I'm going to do my best to tell it, so bear with me. Before I get into it, though, Here's a quick recap of my original submission. When I was 16, I spent a weekend at my friend Charles' beach house in LBI with our other friend Riley. We were chilling in his pool with some girls we had invited over when we noticed people standing across the lagoon watching us. The next thing we knew, we realized they had jumped into the water and were swimming across, so we quickly rushed inside. Unfortunately, we didn't thoroughly lock up the house, and those people broke in. At the time it was all over, the house had been robbed completely. To top it all off, the perps had fled the scene in Charles' family's boat, which they had also stolen. As far as I knew, the authorities were never able to locate the boat or catch the thieves, and that's where things ended. Admittedly, Charles and I fell out of touch after going to separate colleges and moving to different cities, so it's not like I was there to actively receive constant updates about the situation. But I recently caught up with Charles at a high school reunion we both coincidentally attended. Which brings me to the following update. I wasn't even planning on going to the reunion, but my girlfriend convinced me it might be fun to see how everyone turned out. So
That's
I
how
figured,
my
what the
first
hell?
class reunion was.
I was flying solo, which is never fun. But the moment I stepped into the venue, I was pleasantly surprised to see that Charles was already there, talking to Riley and a few other guys from our friend group. It was a kind of cool but surreal moment all at the same time. Seeing people you haven't spoken to in years that looked exactly the same but completely different, you know? I walked over and joined the circle, and it was actually really nice catching up. As the night went on, people started breaking off into smaller groups. Charles pulled Riley and me to the side and asked if we wanted to grab a drink at some random bar after things wrapped up. Riley couldn't for whatever reason. I think he had an early flight the next morning or something, but I was definitely game. So we end up at this little dive bar, just reminiscing about old times over a few beers. I can't exactly remember how, but that night at his beach house floated into the conversation. As soon as it did, Charles slapped the table like he suddenly remembered something he hadn't been thinking about. I should mention that I actually wrote some of this down in my notes app so I could tell the story as accurately as possible, or at least as accurately as Charles told me, because what he said next was pretty wild. So he starts explaining
All right,
his little
guys.
brother Kieran is 19 now, and apparently he and his friends are way bigger troublemakers than we were back in the day. About a year ago, Kieran and two of his friends, without asking permission, decided to take the family's new boat out. This was their replacement boat, by the way, the one they got after the insurance payout from the stolen one. They took it out for what was supposed to be a late afternoon trip, along with a bunch of beer that they were going to drink while out on the water, which is obviously incredibly stupid and dangerous, not to mention illegal since they're all underage. But it gets worse. Charles said they were feeling adventurous, so they decided to anchor near Carvel Island. I had to look this up later, but apparently it's technically part of the Forsyth Wildlife Refuge, and you're not supposed to be there at night. Their plan was to anchor the boat as closely as they could safely get to it, kill the beers, then swim to shore and hang out on the island to watch the stars or whatever. So they swim to shore and find a nice
Sounds
spot
like a
on the
bad
beach.
idea.
They're just sitting there waiting for the sun to go down, talking and whatnot, when one of Kieran's friends notices another boat that they hadn't seen before, anchored further down the shore. Kieran takes a closer look at this other boat, and from what Charles told me, he became convinced it looked exactly like their family's old Boston whaler, the one that got stolen. Now keep in mind, the boat is pretty far away, and it's getting dark out, so Charles had a hard time believing his brother could be sure about it. But according to Charles, Kieran wouldn't even entertain the possibility that this was some random boat. So Kieran convinces his friends to swim out with him to get a better look at the boat. And that's exactly what they do. They swim all the way out there. By the time they reach it, Kieran is 100% convinced that it's his family's old boat. Here's where it gets frustrating,
So you
though.
left the other
Kieran
boat.
wanted to take pictures of the boat to show his parents, but they obviously hadn't brought their phones with them when they swam over. By the time they would have swam back to their boat to get them, it would have been too dark to see anything clearly. One of Kieran's friends suggested calling the police, but Kieran and his other friend were terrified of getting in trouble. They had been drinking, they took the boat out without permission, and they were pretty sure they weren't even supposed to be at that island in the first place.
Then carry your
So
ass
calling the
home
cops was
and
basically
then call the
last thing
cops.
Kieran wanted to do. Instead, they decided to just swim back to their boat, drive it over to the other boat for some pictures, then figure out what to do once they got home. They swam back to the shore to cut out some of the swim, and as they were walking down the beach, one of Kieran's friends turned around and noticed a man walking towards them. Charles said that Kieran was positive the man picked up speed as soon as they turned around, like he was pursuing them. According to Kieran, this person also appeared to be holding a shovel, which was the scariest part. The boys ran, and the guys started running after them. They ran as fast as they could back to their boat, and Kieran looked back one more time to see that the guy was now running in the opposite direction, presumably back to his boat, which was significantly closer. The boys reached the boat and started leaving, but here's the thing. When you're operating a boat after sunset in New Jersey, there's all these regulations about how fast you can go and what lights you need to have on, so it wasn't like they could just gun it out of there. They had to follow the speed limits, which I can imagine made the whole thing even more nerve-wracking. That also meant no detour to check out the other boat. Charles said that Kieran described the ride back as the most tense thing he's ever experienced, and I believe it. Just knowing someone could be following you in the dark without being able to speed away. Kieran said he wasn't sure whether they were followed or not, but he could have sworn he heard the faint sounds of a boat somewhere in the darkness behind them. Once they made it back home, Kieran's friends again pushed him to call the police, but he still refused, saying he was more scared of his parents finding out what they had done than he was of whatever they saw on that island.
Oh, come
The
on.
guilt ate him alive, though, and he came clean to his parents the next day, all except the drinking detail, which Charles only found out because Kieran told him later. Charles said his parents were more furious at Kieran than he remembers them ever being at him, which is saying a lot. Charles' dad banned Kieran from using the house for the rest of the summer, among many other things. His parents ended up reporting what Kieran saw to the authorities, but Charles said nothing ever came of it. Just like with our original incident.
Figures.
The police
This
were
ain't
all
no
but
damn
useless.
update then.
At that point in Charles' story, I had to interrupt him with a few questions. Like, how could the boat still be in use around LBI all these years later without anyone recognizing it?
Exactly.
And why someone would anchor it so close to shore if it was really stolen? I wonder if the police ever searched the island for whatever that guy with the shovel was doing. Charles admitted he didn't have solid answers to any of those questions. His best guess about the boat was that whoever stole it might have stripped it or repainted it enough to avoid suspicion. It's not like every boat owner in the area has the registration numbers memorized, you know? As for why they'd anchor so close to shore, maybe they felt comfortable because it was a restricted area where most people wouldn't go. But my biggest questions were about the guy with the shovel. Charles just shrugged when I asked about that, though, saying maybe he was burying something or digging something up. Either way, it spooked Kieran and his friends enough that they ultimately confessed to something Kieran would normally never tell his parents about. That was pretty much it. Charles and I talked for a little while longer, and then it came time to leave, so we said our goodbyes. I still have no idea what to make of most of this, and hearing the story definitely didn't give me any closure about it. If anything, all it did was open up a whole nother can of worms that will most likely be left unresolved.
Damn right it didn't bring any closure. I was hoping for they busted their ass or something, or man. Too damn concerned about being caught drinking. I mean, wash your mouth out with some powerful, that brown Listerine. That'll kill that alcohol smell, and call the cops. Okay? Tell them what the hell you saw. Get them out there. Oh, my. Whoo, Lord, my nerves. My nerves. Anyway, guys, what did y'all think about that? I mean, the first three were really interesting, but that last one, just that update pissed me off. Oh, my God. I know growing up, most of us do dumb stuff, okay? We go against our parents' wishes. We sit there and drink. I ain't gonna lie. I drank my fair share of Mad Dog 2020 when I shouldn't have been, and a few beers. But the fact of the matter is, if crap went downhill or something crazy happened, I don't care if I've been drinking. I'm gonna say, look, we need to get the cops involved. Okay? And the cops are going to be more concerned about what you're reporting than the smell of Zima on your breath or Mad Dog. Okay? They're going to say, well, your parents can deal with that. But damn, man, come on. They could have got their boat back if he had called the cops that night. Anyway. But guys, what y'all think of the story? Tell me in the comment section what you think about it. And have any of y'all had any beach horror stories? I've had one, And it was, I think it was, how old was I? I think I was 20 at the time. And we had all went to Galveston Beach, and it was just me and four friends, close friends of mine at the time. And it was like 1 in the damn morning. And we just wanted to go out there, hang out, screw around. I was spending the night at one of them's house, so no, my mom didn't know what we were doing. And we went out, went to the beach, got in the water, and since there were no lights out, only just moon, barely, it was, I think it was hardly any moonlight. We really couldn't see anything. And we were all playing around in the water, and we were in it for like 20 minutes, and then something, I don't know, it felt like I stepped on something, and I jumped out of the water because it hurt bad. And when I got out of the water, I had like a circle, it was almost oval, of little punctures in my foot. And I refused to get back in that water, and it was bleeding bad. And my friend of mine who had extra, like brought a pair of extra socks, he gave me one of them and wrapped it around my foot because we didn't have any bandages or anything. We had to stop and get some, but everybody got out the water after that, and I was in so much pain. Oh my god! And I thought I had stepped on glass or something. And one of the guys said, "No, from the way it looks and the shape, you might have gotten bit by a sand shark." I said, "Hell no!" I said, "I am not getting back in that damn water tonight." And plus, in Galveston, the water already is not very. It's not clear. It's brown. Okay. So even during the day, I might have got I might have gotten bit then too. But yeah, it hurt really bad. And of course I went home the next day limping. And my mom was asking, "What happened to you?" I said, "We were horsing around and I hurt myself." She shook her head. But anyway. But yeah, guys, if you have any real horror stories, share them in the comment section. I want to know. And a huge shout out to Mr. Nightmare for more amazing stories. If you guys don't have never gone to his channel, I'm gonna leave the link in the description below. You guys go check him out. Dude, I used to, when I worked in the office, I would always have my headphones on, and I, even after I was working from home, I would just love listening to his stories while I worked. And he was the first real creepy pasta or creepy storyteller that I listened to on YouTube. I mean, my mom even fell in love with him. So, Mr. Nightmare, shout out to you and keep up the good work. And you all have a good night and take care. Like he said, lock your damn house up when you go to bed, okay? And I will catch you all in the next video. Like always, please help your brother out by hitting that like button. If you're new to the channel, help a brother out by subscribing. You won't regret it. And check your notification bells to make sure they're clicked so you can get notifications when these go up. Everyone have a blessed night. Stay safe, and I will see you in the next video. I'm out.